How's it going, man?
Filming at the moment.
Going to? Yeah. Yeah, record a vlog.
Man, this was like sick last night.
This is Julian, and I'm here in Riga, Latvia. And what we're gonna crack into here is a video that I just recorded with Robert Greene on the topic of hustle. Now, before we get into it though, okay, I thought I'd just ask you, or test you if you will, on your degree of hustle. Okay, this is a question that I ask pretty much everyone I work with, okay, this is something that people just fucking lack, okay, and that is, who the fuck would you call right now if you were in jail? Okay, who the fuck would you call to bail you out of jail? Okay, right now you may be pursuing a certain goal and there's all these limitations. You know, it could be financial, you know, I just don't have the money to do this or to do this. I just don't have the motivation to do this or to this. Okay, and you know, in a way that could be true, but okay, if you're really coming from this hustler's mentality, if you were in jail right now, and let's just say whatever money you needed to achieve what you're trying to accomplish here, that was the bail amount, who the fuck would you call? Okay, how seriously would you take it? Would you find the money right now? You're in jail tonight. You need that money to get out. Would you find it? Fuck yeah, you'd find it. If you had to go out and do that thing you're just a little too lazy to do, it's just a little too hard, a little too emotionally, draining or taxing, it's like, hey, get out of jail, you gotta do that. Would you do it? The answer is yes. Okay, now why don't you take that pursuit as seriously? Okay, why don't you take everything as fucking seriously as if you were in jail right now and you had to get the fuck out of jail? Okay, that there is the degree of hustle that you should cultivate. Okay, that there is what I try to do. This is the standard I try to hold myself up to, and everyone who's achieved something, okay, has held themselves up to that same exact standard. Okay, so I thought I'd just start the video with this here, kind of a slap in the fucking face, and we'll dive into this in further depth in a video. Enjoy. This is Julian, and I'm here with Robert Greene. Okay, I'll put a link to his work here below. Get on that now. Okay, he's wrote amazing, amazing books. Including Mastery. Okay, you probably heard of that one. Some of my personal favorite ones are, the 50th Law, the 48 Laws of Power, and the Art of Seduction. And what I thought we could dive into in this video here is talk a little bit about hustle. Okay, and this is something that you really touch on in the 50th Law, but also in Mastery. And I personally really resonated with that, especially when you say there was a bit where you talked about how society really shelters us from actually going out and developing our natural abilities, or thinking for ourselves, becoming more resourceful. You know, we live in a society that really values comfort above all else. You're sick, right, jump to medicine. You're hungry, it's like quick fix of food. And, we're looking for all these little shortcuts or ways where we can just sit back and do nothing. And right, we think it helps us, but in reality it just kills a lot of our just abilities or that trust in our faculties in a way. So if we could kind of talk about that and then kind of see where it goes from there.
Well, the image of the hustler, kind of the archetype, it's a really American thing. It's not. I've always wondered, does it exist in other cultures? I've seen sort of little examples of it in the past, but it's really kind of a quintessential American thing. We can look at it in the 19th century. Where the kind of mentality, that pioneer Yankee spirit, and people were starting to be called hustlers. It was sort of fascinating. Card sharks, con artists, people like that. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, like African American culture pretty much took over the word, and it became associated with, the kind of the drug dealing, street culture in the East Coast. And when I did the book, I did the 50th Law. It was co-written with 50 Cent.
Yeah.
And he obviously was a hustler, a drug dealer, starting at the age of 9 in Queens, New York. So I was sort of, in that book, I really wanted to get deep inside the mentality, like what makes a hustler a hustler. And the sense of it is the sort of pressure is on you. You want to make money. It's really about money more than anything else. There's power, obviously, that comes with money. You desperately need to get this money however you can, and your options are extremely limited. You're not going to go to a bank. You're not going to become a doctor, a dentist, or anything like that. You can basically deal drugs, maybe become a rap artist, and so you've got this insane pressure on you. As 50 put it very elegantly, get rich or die trying. It's either you die getting there or you make it. Mm-hmm. And that kind of spirit creates and obviously very intense motivation, a lot of energy, and as you put it, a sort of a resourceful spirit. Like,
Yeah.
what can I do? You become very creative with the little that you have. And so, you look at someone like 50 or that type, and you look at the 19th century and you see that people that energy comes from people who don't have a lot in their life. And, for a lot of Americans and people who have comfort, who grew up in a middle class to upper middle class environment, they don't feel that kind of pressure. And so the difference would be, are you someone who's like waiting for things to happen to you? Are you waiting? You have a sense that you deserve great things in life, and people should be giving you what you need, that you're entitled to things. So you're waiting for the great job to happen. You're waiting to get in the good school, get the degree, and you're hoping for things to happen to you. And the hustler spirit is the opposite. You're not waiting for anything. You can't wait, because the more time that passes, you're going to be in a bad place. You're going to get shot by the police. You're not going to live very long. You have a short life. So you're not waiting. You're out there actively making things happen for yourself. And that active spirit of making things happen for yourself is incredibly powerful. If you have that attitude, like, I'm just going to do whatever it takes to make it, you're going to create the kind of circumstances that I told you this was the moment here. Thank you, Vera. Thank you. You're going to have a chance to kind of create the circumstances that you desire. So, I talk in the book, 50 he's just got shot, and looks like his life is over. No record label will come near him. He's a drug dealer who's got too much past. His life looks like it's finished. And he says, no, fuck you. I'm not going to let this be the end of me. I'm going to take whatever I can do. And he launches this insane mixtape campaign on the streets. And so, the question is, why can't everybody have that kind of energy? There are plenty of people in life who have that sort of hustler mentality, who weren't raised in the ghetto, who weren't drug dealers, who become extremely successful, who have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit that we associate with America, that get things for themselves. And as you say, they're not like looking for shortcuts. They're not looking for the junk food type mentality. They're got this incredible drive. And if you're hungry for power and you're hungry for money, you become realistic and practical, and you know that it only comes through extreme hard work. And I think it was surprising for people to look at the 50th Law, where we talk a lot about 50's background, how hard the guy works. He's not someone who's living off the bling, who's just, okay, I can make good songs and I have these other skills. He works insanely hard, this guy. He's always hustling. So, the thing is, do you feel that pressure? Can you manufacture that pressure? Or do you feel like, oh man, I've got 10 years and I'll figure it out in 10 years. Something good will happen. My dad will help me. My mom will help me. The government will do something for me. Or are you feeling like, no, man, I got to make it happen? That's the difference. For someone like him, it's created by his environment because he has no other choice. For you, if you don't grow up in it, it's created by you, your spirit, by your mentality. And so that's a book about how you can create that mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also reframing that pressure as being something good and not something bad. It's like we fear discomfort, and we have so many negative associations like, oh, this is bad, when in reality, if you can use it as motivational fuel, the same as 50 did here, you can accomplish great things. And it's funny too, coming from, like, just myself, I'm originally from Switzerland, and I had like the average...
Where's your accent?
My mom's American. So French with my dad, French at school, English with my mom, and a little German. And, for me, I came from like a very just normal background, just very bland. And when I was 20, I actually decided to quit university, move to Los Angeles, and pretty much just built, everything that I am now from there. So for me, that was like the biggest one where it finally just got that, let's do this, because there is no going back. There's that saying, burning the boats. So there was a lot of that.
I call it the death ground strategy. I have my book on strategy, and my version of the art of war is Cortez. He burnt the boats so that people couldn't return to Cuba. It was either kill the Aztecs and conquer Mexico City or die. So you were living on what we call death ground.
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, it was like just as you mentioned, finding ways to manufacture it. So that was a big one. And then the other big fear that I had, and that probably a lot of people watching have, is say you manufacture it, like say you make that jump, how do you know you can actually go all the way through? Because what happens is you make that leap, you get out of that middle ground, but if you don't go all the way through, you end up at the bottom. So it's like either you make it, or you're done, like absolutely done. And I think that's something that holds a lot of people back too. It's like they don't have that self-trust that they can actually get there, or that belief that they can succeed.
Well, that's an interesting point, and that's something I talk about in Mastery. I call it trust the process, and basically to become really good at something, to become successful at whatever your venture was, you have to improve constantly. You have to learn. You have to learn from your mistakes. You have to be open to be taught, to be mentored. All these other factors. And if you go through this process, the brain is designed for you to get better and better and better and better at things. Do you trust that process? Do you actually believe that in working hard, trying a venture, let's say you were going to start your own business, do you believe that if you try it, instead of waiting, as we were talking earlier, are you going to wait for the right moment to start your business, or are you going to go out and fucking do it? Okay, let's say you go out and do it, and it fails, all right? That's the crossroad moment that you're alluding to. Do you go, oh man, it's not going to work. I don't trust myself. I got to go get a job. I can't do this. Or do you say, no, when I was playing sports or whatever, when I failed, I got back up and I learned and I got better and better and better at it. So your next venture will inevitably be better than the first one. Do you trust the process? Do you have faith in how the human brain operates? We live in an era where it's much different from let's say my father's era, when he was working at his job in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Where you basically could rely on your company to sort of take care of you for your whole life. And you had, he worked one job his whole life. We don't have that security anymore. People don't have that kind of life. And we really have to learn how to depend on ourselves. It's a very competitive, globalized economy. We're in a kind of a shift right now where we don't really know what the new economy is going to be like. The internet has just totally changed everything. And so this is an amazing world to grow up in, to be in your 20s, where you have fantastic opportunities, particularly via the web, to start your own business and not be that kind of person that's waiting forever, and to kind of create what you want to create and not working for someone else. So it's the time that you live in that you need to develop self-reliance, and you need to be able to be somebody who can get things on your own and not be waiting for things. So if you're not, it's like, what I'm trying to say is the times that we live in almost make it desperate for you. It's almost like being on the streets of Southside Queens with 50. You don't think of it that way because you wake up and you've got your apartment and et cetera. But really, there is a lot of pressure because it's a very difficult world that we live in. So you don't almost have to manufacture it. It is there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you have that sense of urgency no matter what, as soon as you just realize it. Yeah, one thing I did too is I just slowly built that muscle of being that go-getter. Okay, it's like one, as you mentioned, it's like don't wait for it. It's like there's that whole mentality that society really conditions us to think it's winning the lottery ticket. It's like that's what success is. Maybe I'm one of those lucky few, yes or no. So unwinding from that, and then proving to yourself that the same as you just mentioned here, with your brain rewiring to learn a sport, you can achieve these little steps that are, outside of your comfort zone in a way. So the gradual build-up then just gives you more and more proof, like, oh, I can do this, and then of course, the bigger you get or the more successful you become, the bigger the challenge is, but you have that whole background of, I've dealt with all this before, I can't necessarily see it now, but I will find a solution, I will make this work one way or another.
Yes.
Yeah, and another big one too that I thought we could touch on here is the importance, and you talk a lot about this, the importance of traveling and just really getting a wider range of perspective. I think you link it to finding your purpose, where it's like people don't really know what's my purpose, what do I like doing, what's my passion, and you mentioned travel around, like try different things, get that wider perspective, and just in terms of hustle, like finding the solution, that helps a lot too, because we're really buried in our little worlds of me, the neighbor, instead of thinking on this bigger scale here.
Yeah. Well, if you want to, you can put the link later on, but I did a TED Talk. I don't know if you saw that, which I talk about like how my particular journey was in life. And not that I'm that interesting, but the journey that I went through to become a writer, sort of involves what you talk about. And in that talk, I mentioned the fact that I probably had well over 50 different jobs after graduating college, in all different. There was no. I tried everything. I did construction work in Greece. I was taught English in Spain. I worked in a hotel. I worked in a detective agency. I worked in Hollywood. I worked in journalism, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend going to that extreme, because that's sort of what you want maybe to become a writer. And if your goals are different, I don't think you have that luxury in the world today. But what happened was, and I recommend it for people, is you learn to discover what you love, what you hate. You try things out. I think a lot of young people, because of the competitive world that we live in and because of the crash of '08, things like that can make you, I'm talking about like millennials, it can make you kind of conservative in your spirit. It can make you think, I got to get a great job. I got to graduate from school, get that right job, and just, because it's too dangerous out there. As opposed to relaxing a little bit, not being in a hurry to make a lot of money, not being in a hurry to be famous and successful, and be willing to go out and try different things. Travel was one that I particularly liked because I love learning languages and living in another culture, and it gave me a real sense of perspective. And it's a great skill to have in the world today. I learned French and other, a little bit German and some languages, but you could go out and do Chinese and Japanese, etc. For number one, it's a great skill to have in a globalized world. Yeah, it's a great discipline. I talk in Mastery about training the mind to learn things. And you might be an electrical engineer, and that's what your specialty is, but that's not to hold you back from, on your spare time, learning a musical instrument or a language or chess. Great development for the brain, and learning a foreign language is an amazing exercise for the brain. Getting inside of another culture trains you how to get inside and be attentive to other people. Many, many, many benefits. And so even if you're not going to, I didn't write the 48 Laws of Power until I was 36, 37 years old. Maybe you don't want to wait that long. Maybe you only want to spend 3 or 4 years wandering around. But it's really important to give yourself that breathing space where you're not in a hurry right out of college or wherever to make it, where you're going to try things out and see what you love and what you hate.
Yeah. No, I did pretty much the same thing. Like travel really helped a lot, and reading biographies too, like seeing someone's like entire life journey and kind of seeing behind the curtain of, oh, this guy just did this or this person did that, and actually seeing the actual struggle, all the different obstacles, and it just really like, whoa, again, it's like it really heightens your sense of perspective. The other thing too that I found really interesting, especially in the 50th Law, is just in terms of the way his brain would work. Like he's in a certain situation, as you mentioned, okay, he's lying there after getting shot, he launches that new mixtape. He was like very, very strategic with the way he went about things. If you could expand on that a bit.
Well, the problem with that is everybody's got a different weird path in life, and circumstances are. It's hard to give like a general strategy, although I try to do it in my books, but it's more on the level of your attitude than on exactly a strategy. So take, for instance, just looking at 50 himself. He was 15, 16 years old, and he decides he's got to get out of dealing drugs. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're working at McDonald's, and you've got to get out of flipping burgers. And so he said, all right, what do I want to become? I want to become a rapper. As we said, people in that situation had 2 or 3 options in life, and that was it. He wanted to become a rapper, but he loved the music, etc. So what does he do? He doesn't like go home and start creating his music, because that's just, he has no experience. It won't go anywhere. So he finds Jam Master Jay, a guy who was, in Run DMC. I think it was Run DMC. Early 80s, one of the biggest rappers around. And he befriends him in a very strategic way. He finds him in a club, and he says the right thing, because if you meet 50, he's very charming, and he knows how to seduce people. He got Jam Master Jay to become his mentor. Okay, now already, step 1, he's done the right thing. And in Mastery, I talk about the importance of finding a mentor in your life if you're young. It's not always easy, and it depends on where you are. So I discuss that, how you can find that kind of person. But he found this perfect mentor. So this guy trains him in music, basically giving him a complete education. And then he signs a deal with, I forget the record label, CBS or some Columbia, I think. And he's like 17, 18 years old. And he decides, I'm not going to just sit there and now, with my great deal, turn out a record and just start making money. I'm going to take Columbia Records, and I'm going to treat it like my university. And I'm going to go there every single day, and I'm going to learn the music business. Okay, I'm going to learn how to produce. I'm going to learn how to engineer songs. I'm going to learn the business side. I mean, come on, how smart is that? So he's not just, because he knows, there are a lot of one-hit wonders out there. You do one, you could be Ja Rule, and whoever listens to Ja Rule anymore. You could have one album, and then you're finished. So he's going to take, and he's going to create a incredible knowledge about the business itself. Then he gets shot, and the record deal is canceled, and he's back to square one. Well, he's not back to square one, because he learned all the elements of how to produce great music. He's already apprenticed with Jam Master Jay. So now what does he do? He can't use a record label. He's going to go to the streets, and he's going to create a viral campaign. Well, those 3 steps that I just gave you are immensely replicable and applicable to anybody out there who's in whatever situation it is. Number 1, you decide what you want to do. Okay, we talked about it, it's your life's purpose. We can go on here now for 4 hours about how you do that. You may want to read Mastery of the 50th Law. I have a lot of ideas on that. But you've got to know what you want, what you love. Okay, he decides it's music. You've got to educate yourself in it. You can't just simply go out and do it. There are people out there who are brilliant at it, who know much more than you. You need to find a mentor. You need to go through an apprenticeship. You need to be patient and learn. If you go into any field, don't just specialize. Learn all aspects of it. If you're creating a web show, don't just become a personality on the web. Learn marketing, which I'm sure you had to do. Yeah. Learn all aspects of production. Treat it seriously. The more you know, we live in a world where information is like the gold. You can make connections between all these different things, which is and he ended up doing as not just a rapper, but a businessman. And then going to the streets, having an incredible connection to what's happening to people out there, not thinking, oh, I've got a great idea here, but literally finding a way to connect to the people that you're trying to reach in a very direct way, which was what he did. And then his viral campaign. Well, right there, you got a hustler, and you've got amazing sort of ideas about strategies you can apply in any kind of difficult situation in your life.
We tend to think success is it just gets us to that destination, when in reality success just gets you more. It's like every level up, let's just say, more doors are open to you. There's more opportunities, as you mentioned. learn marketing, learn this. Like you can get all these skills, and then linking it back to what you said too about our society today. You need that. So that's really what success is. Don't just be like, oh, I've made it. I'm a rapper now, or even myself, I've made it. I'm making videos now. It's like, no, learn all the necessary skills, and then once you get to the next level, learn the new skills that are made available to you, so on and so forth.
Well, there's all sorts of studies that show kind of how the brain operates best. And you could come up with different metaphors, but let's say this is your level of knowledge, like here. And if what you're doing is below your level of knowledge, like you really know more than you need to know, you're going to be bored. You're going to tune out. There's no challenges left, and your brain kind of goes, just kind of withers. It's not being exercised. It's like your body, it's not exercising, and bad things can start happening. Okay, so that's below. Let's say it's at your level. Well, that's good. That's pretty good. You're at the right level. You know enough to get things done. But then there's not really any like great challenges, and pretty soon, if you don't go any further, it'll start being below. That's just how the brain works. So you go up a little bit above you, like a few steps above you, like what you have to do. You don't quite know enough. It's a little bit above your level and your knowledge. That's the optimal place to be in life. If you went way above or too far above, you're going to feel discouraged. You'll never make it. You'll make too many mistakes, and you won't have a proper learning curve because it'll always be just a little too much for you to get to that point where you know enough to operate adequately. But if it's above your level and you feel challenged and you have a sense in your gut, I don't quite know when I wake up how I'm going to get this done. All right, then your brain clicks in, okay, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to, I'll figure it out. Ah, that's great. The challenge, the excitement that comes. How do you get to that moment, that position where it's always just a little bit above you? That's the challenge in life. If it's below you, you're in trouble. There's a moment I talk about, and I think a lot of my books, which is kind of the archetype in history. It's Julius Caesar. He's three men are governing Rome, ancient Rome. It's the triumvirate. They're sharing power. One of them is Pompey, and Pompey is Caesar's great rival. And Pompey is probably more powerful, and he's certainly wealthier than Caesar. Caesar's been spending his time in Gaul, which was France at that point, and he has a good army, but he doesn't have the same size army as Pompey, and he doesn't have the power. And suddenly, Pompey initiates the civil war, where he's going to take out Caesar, or he's basically dissolving the triumvirate. Pompey's in Rome, Caesar's still in France. And so there's this moment that arrives that Caesar has to decide, what am I going to do? Am I going to kind of surrender and just sort of give in to the terms that Pompey is asking for? I don't have a big enough army to take him out. So he has this crossroads, and he decides, okay, I'm going to cross the river into Italy, the Rubicon. We always talk the metaphor of crossing your Rubicon. And then he has the famous line, the die is cast. I'm throwing all my money into the pot. With my smaller army, I'm going to march on Rome, and I'm going to go to war, and I'm going to take the war to him. He has half the resources, half the men, half the money, but he's got the energy and the momentum, and he decides the challenge is so great that it's going to make him creative, it's going to make his army energized, and they're going to make it happen. And that move, crossing the river, so intimidated Pompey, who already had the larger army, that he leaves Rome, he flees Rome, and decides he's going to regroup somewhere else to fight Caesar. It had a complete psychological effect. That's the kind of power you have when you take on challenges. It's more than you think you're capable of. Your brain will sort of click in. You'll find that energy, that kind of hustler energy that we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's actually a quote from the 50th Law where you say, if there's nothing to overcome, why would you step it up in the first place? I'm paraphrasing, but something along these lines there. Yeah, I mean, the last thing I thought we could touch on here, and you talk a lot about this in all of your books, it's being realistic and taking on that mindset there. If you could just elaborate a bit on that, that'd be awesome.
there are different kinds of people. There are people who sort of like to live in fantasy. They love, video games. I have nothing against video games. They're great, but they like fantasy and illusion, and they watch a lot of movies, and maybe they take drugs, and maybe whatever it is they like. Reality is harsh and boring. It means going to a job. It means, not being with the hottest woman. It means blah, 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 blah. So you associate reality with kind of, oh man, or a reality show, or all those bad things.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to say, actually, it's the opposite. Illusion, fantasy, that's actually kind of boring. It has no connection to anything. It doesn't lead anywhere. It's sort of like junk food. But reality is actually really, really exciting. That's where things happen. That's where, power is made. It's not a world. So the other type of person in the fantasy column is always thinking, oh, why are people like that? Why are people bad? Why are people manipulative? Why can't everybody just be nice? The realist is, no, people are people. There are bad ones out there. There are sociopaths. There are people who are not so smart, people who are incompetent, people who are great. And that's just reality. And you accept it, and you don't want to change people, and you don't whine about, oh, I wish people were like this, or I wish he hadn't done that. You accept everything as it is, and you work with it. You work with the materials that the world has given you. You have amazing material in your brain. You have a tool that's, nothing else in nature has that tool. You have these. You don't need money. You just develop your brain. Something great will happen. You've got, the times that we live in. That's the reality. You don't live in the future. You don't live in the 80s or 90s. You live in now, the world now. And the world now is very weird and very exciting. So you change. It's an attitude adjustment where you love reality. You adjust to it. You say, this is the world I live in. I accept it. I'm going to work with it. And I'm not wishing for something else. And it's also the thing in the book that we call amor fati, which in Latin means love of fate. You embrace your fate. You embrace everything that happens to you. The bad things are good. If you're in a relationship and suddenly your girlfriend leaves you, oh man, that's painful, but it's good because it's going to make you grow and become a stronger person. If your job fails, that's good because you're going to learn all these lessons. That's radical realism. Everything you look at square in the eye, and you don't go, oh man, why can't it be something else? No, it is there. This is what happened, and you're going to make the best of it. So that's sort of my overall philosophy, and it's the philosophy that 50 has, and it's the first chapter in the 50th law.
Yeah, no, beautiful. Yeah, I'm the same way, and I see it so often too. Just in people trying to achieve success, it's like they hang on to those stories of why can it not be like this, or why is this happening to me, or another one is the world should be beautiful. The world's this beautiful place when in reality it's messy. There are times when it's very, very harsh. Come to terms with that, and once again, it's not bad. A lot of those instances where you think it's bad in the moment, you look back, and those are really those moments that change you deep down inside. Like those moments you would never ever take back.
Yeah, if everything were good, it would be kind of miserable.
Yeah,
wouldn't be very nice to live in a world where everything is just so wonderful, where you just wake up and a pear lands in your hand. You don't have to go out and do anything to get it, and you wouldn't learn anything. You'd be miserable, I think. So, it's good to have some of that harshness and some of that ugliness and some of that chaos pressing on you, because it makes you try and improve yourself and get something better in life.
Perfect.